All right, looks like we are online. We're good to go, and this is once again, how did I get here? Our weekly show of for business owners, salespeople, sales managers of how to get here, and that could be at the end of the month where you thought you're going to blow it out of the water and you didn't do anything. How to get here, or the end of the month or the quarter of the year, you go, boy, we're going to have a terrible year, and you blew it out of the water. So many things happen. And so today, we're lucky we have Steve Kaufman with us. My goodness, Steve, how long have we known each other?
Oh, Tom, first of all, good morning and thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure. And I think we've probably known each other about 15 years or so.
Yeah, it's been about 15 years. And I wanted to bring Steve on for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's a friend. He was a client first, and we became friends. And Steve has done a couple things, but recently, Steve has taken a company from under 100 million, right, Steve? And then took it to a sale to a fairly large company. I'm not sure I can say that company, but to a fairly large company, and really was a very beneficial sale, from what I understand.
Yeah, it was really a terrific sale on both ends. So many times you get a deal and, one of the parties doesn't get out of it what they thought they were going to get. But this particular one was, I think, great on both ends. It was publicly reported, so I can talk about it. But it was a company in Allen called WatchGuard Video, and we built dash cam video, body worn video, and the back end systems that ran all of that for police cars and for police officers. And in 2019, we sold that company to Motorola, and they have taken that company and continue to be very successful.
Right, right. And this isn't the first time you've done this. You've done this before with other companies, and right now you're helping other companies sell their businesses, correct?
That's correct, Tom. I got started early working with privately held entrepreneurial led companies. I started my career at Deloitte in a small business consulting group. And so we helped just those kinds of people. And I got the opportunity to learn how they thought, how they wanted to exit, what kind of things made good exits for them. And I've been able to incorporate that into being able to run some companies as well as consult for some companies, along that way. And so prior to WatchGuard, I ran two other companies, one of which we had a successful sell as well, and one which was a public company that we grew tremendously. And then I exited to go to WatchGuard.
Right, right. So, one thing I can look at this is you've always been very sales minded, but I would imagine you walk into a company and look and you see something different than most people see. And because when you take a company that's, doing okay, just stagnant, but take it to an explosive range, you look at a company different. And I think we can all learn from that, including salespeople and sales managers and owners, of how do you look at things differently that say, yeah, I can take this to here.
Yeah, I definitely think I lead with the sales aspect. Certainly, I've got a lot of operational background as well, but I mean, sales leads everything. That's what we're there for. And I think a lot of times, especially in entrepreneur-led companies, where the founder has created the product or service that they have, and that product or service is almost like one of their children. And it's
Yeah.
difficult for an entrepreneur to look at that child and see anything other than what he loves. And it's helpful for somebody from the outside to come in and say, listen, let's look at this from, a customer's perspective or an outside perspective. Yeah, it's your baby, but your baby's probably not as pretty as you think it is. And let's dig in here. Let's be very objective about our assessments along the way. And just that step alone usually yields tremendous improvement.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, looking at it that way, and I think that's true. And when I walk into sales departments and I look at them and I can see easily what they've done wrong or not doing right or what have you. Is there when you're looking at companies, is there certain things that you're looking for in the sales department that say this is going to hurt us, is this going to help us? Because you got a great operational background, but you're also understand sales well enough that if you build the perfect product, and we can't sell it, we got a problem. Is there something you look for in a sales department or do, or
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's necessarily, sort of a one size fits all on that. But one of the first things I look at, and Tom, this is something I really learned from you, and that is, look, can you tell me up and down the line what our sales department is doing? Do we have metrics in place that tell me, how many opportunities do we create? How many leads do we create? What are we closing? Just give me the basic data. And is it true? Is it real? Is it reported timely? Do we understand it? And it's surprising how many companies, even larger companies, don't have that data. If you don't have that as a starting point, you don't know what direction to point. Obviously, you've got product and service that you can go point to and go fix, go improve whatever. But even as you improve that, if your sales aren't improving, then it's someplace else. And so I like to start just with that basic data. Can you just tell me what's going on in the sales department, and let's go take a look at it.
right, right? And it is amazing in today's world with technology that we have that people can't tell you the data of what's happening in the sales department, or and maybe it's because they don't want to. It could be a part of it.
Yeah, I think the common complaint from salesmen is, well, would you rather me be putting data into a computer, or would you rather me be selling? And that's an excuse. I need you to be putting data into a computer so that we together can work on where we're winning, where we're losing, what can we improve on, how can I help you? Maybe we need to be pointed in a different direction. And so, yeah, it takes some time, but I think salespeople need to know that the company's committed to that. We have systems in place that will help you do that quickly and efficiently, but we also require that.
Yeah. And it's interesting. As I know you and I've talked about it, but AI in today's world, AI is not going to replace a salesperson, but I believe a salesperson that's not using AI will be replaced. It's tremendous what technology can do to help the sales department. Even though I think most salespeople have fought it for so many years, and sales managers, and maybe even owners. What do I do with the CRM data? I got a CRM. It's supposed to be great, but I don't know what to do with the data. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. And by the way, I think, Tom, that's where you come in. When you can get this data, an entrepreneur who maybe doesn't have the management depth that a bigger company would have, they can lean on you to help uh, understand, what do I do with this? But even if it's just their internal management team, what do I do with this? You got to start somewhere, and you got to start making that part of your regular management process, your regular weekly meetings, your regular quarterly reviews, reviewing that data, getting used to what you should be seeing, so that immediately you can say, hey, wait a minute, this is off, or something happened here and that doesn't look right. And if you look at scorecards for management teams, most scorecards are historical in nature. That data tells you what happened last week or last month or whatever. Sales is the one area where it's very prospective data. It's the stuff that's telling you what's going to happen next month or next quarter. And it's really the only thing that today, right now, I can go do something about that will affect positively me going forward. Most of the other data is historical. It's done. There's not much I can do about it.
that's a great point. I mean, yeah, if you look at that, um, all the other data is this is where we're at so far in production, right? But sales data is something you can I influence the next month? And I can also look at it and go, uh oh, 3 months from now we're in trouble, right? And predict ahead of time. If people will take the time to learn the data. And I also think that's one of the problems with salespeople is salespeople maybe put in the data and then no one uses it to help them and they go, why am I putting it in there?
Yeah, I think that is a great point. And for non-sales managers that are on executive teams, that is one of the biggest pushbacks you get. And it's a legitimate pushback. And that is, we're doing all this work, we're putting all this data in, but you're not using it anyway. So, why am I doing this? When you go down that road, management, senior managers got to be absolutely committed to, this is the way we're going to run our business. This is how we're going to look at it. This is the terminology that we're going to use. This is the language around it. Here's how awful we're going to look at it, and then a consistency about the actions that you take as a result. So you gotta be committed to that. It's not just the salesman spending time to do that. Management has to also spend time.
Right, right. And let me shift gears a little. Has it's something, and maybe it's a little self-serving, but we met each other 15 years ago, and you actually brought us on to train your people, and we actually worked with you and your people for all the way up until the sale, and you had us trained for 10, 12, 13 years. Um, and I mean this not as a self-serving, but in today's world, I see training as a must for most companies, not just sales training, training in general. And so, what was your philosophy behind constantly training the salespeople and sharpening their saw?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's a big investment, and probably as you've seen, if companies do get into a bit of a slowdown or a bit of a pinch or whatever, training, be it sales training or anything else, tends to be the first thing cut. It's easy to cut. You don't see maybe an immediate reaction as a result of this cut, so you think you can get away with it, and then maybe come back to it later. But really, the disciplined people know that training is a must. Even for your very senior veteran people, training's a must. You got to go over and remind yourself, oh yeah, this, oh yeah, that. But also then in that training, getting your senior guys to help the younger guys. That's a big part. And I think formalized training um, is a forum for your senior guys to help those younger guys. It's very productive, and it was with you in a lot of the forums that we had. You get those guys together. I think it gives your training even an extra edge.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, Steve, you've probably also seen blunders out there. I mean, you're still working with companies and consulting with them. What blunder do you see in young companies starting up that maybe you could say, hey, look at if all else, don't do these two things or whatever?
Yeah, that cuts across so many different spectrums.
Yeah,
I'm going to kind of stick to the sales side of it right now. And even if it's the single entrepreneur and that's all you have, start building systems that support, let's say, CRM or pipeline reporting or some type of reporting. Start building them early on. And especially when you got one or two or three guys and they say, look, it's just the three of us. We don't need that. The best and the easiest time to build those systems and those processes is when there's not a whole lot of leverage on them, and they're easy to build, and you can do that. So early on, decide that's what we're going to do. And when I say CRM, certainly you got to look at the electronic piece of it. You got to, which app are you going to use? But I'm really focused more on the processes around that information. How do I gather it? What does it mean? Have I put together a pipeline reporting system that has all of the terminology defined, and we know how to go through this? That's a process. You can put that into any pretty much any CRM app that you want. So it's not just going out and selecting an app. It's more about early on getting those processes implemented and becoming just part of the culture.
yeah, and I think that's probably one of the first things we started on is building a process for your inside team and your outside team. And I see that so many times when I walk into companies. They have salespeople. They don't really have a process. They're shooting from the hip. And I think the more you put that in place, then the data makes sense. Then there's things you can do about it, and you can move forward with it and truly improve the selling of the company. And
Yeah, definitely.
I was just going to
And
say, and
and
even change the culture.
it definitely changes the culture. No doubt about that. And I go back to even our sale to Motorola. Motorola is very much a projections oriented company. Every week they look at sales projections. They're digging into that, and it was easy for us to roll into that because we had those systems built. I know they had purchased other companies where those systems weren't built, and those companies had a tough time trying to catch up and get on board with how Motorola wanted to see it. We were already there, and Tom, thanks to you, a lot of that came from your help way early on. Um, but that is a foundational thing that sure is a lot easier the earlier on you get it in there.
Great. Great. Well, Steve, any last advice you want to give anybody?
Oh man, you got another hour?
Yeah, right.
I tell you this, I love entrepreneurs and I love entrepreneurial led companies. And there is just so much change going on right now that they're challenged on every front with things that aren't like they were even 5 years ago. They're having to learn new systems, to learn new ways to do business and that kind of thing. So I would say make sure either you have the absolute best management team with you that you can, or if you're not at that point yet, make sure you get some great advisors who can bring you current information. I've been out of running a company day to day for 4 years, and it's amazing how much has changed in that 4 years. It's tough to keep up. So getting outside good advisors who are current, I think is one of those first things that you need to work on.
Great. Well, Steve, I appreciate it. Hey, everybody, this is How Did I Get Here? And our guest, Steve Kaufman, who's taken many companies to sale. Great advice from him, and you can look for him and email him. It's Steve Kaufman at stevekaufman.com, isn't it?
It is Steve at thekaufmangroup.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Right. And we'll put his name in the chat box. And great having you. Thanks for the advice. And like I said, how did we get here? Well, Steve can tell you how he got there. He tracked everything, kept processes, understands data, and used that data and everything towards the sales department as opposed to just hoarding it into the operation. So, Steve, thanks again for great insight. Next week we're going to have, I believe we actually have Jay Johnson, who's going to be on next week. So we'll have fun with that. But everyone, thanks so much, and we will see you next week.
All right, thanks, Tom. Good luck, guys.
Thanks, Steve.